Hello, everyone. Hi. Welcome to today's session. I'm Romina. I work for Macmillan Education. I am looking at the comments right now. I see lots of people already. Hi, everyone. I just would like to remind you that you have the chat, as you have noticed. During the session, you're going to use the chat quite a lot. So if you would like to familiarize a little bit with it, do type now your okay, I'm seeing now. So do type, maybe if I can ask you where you're writing from, so that I have an idea of how many people we have and what kind of regions you're going to take me to today. I work for Macmillan Education, I was saying, and today we are going to have a session about multiliteracy with our teacher trainer, Anna Hasper, who I'm going to wait in a second. Anna, if you're here. Okay, super. Hi, Anna. Hello.
Hi,
Anna is going to help us today with multiliteracy. She's one of our trusted teacher trainers, and she's also an expert, let's say, on the one of our series that we have in the Italian market, which is Gateway to the World, and the Italian counterpart, Gateway to Success and Think Global. So I'm sure you're going to have a nice session with her today, and I'll just be here for anything that you might need. So I'm going to help with questions. And please use the YouTube chat for your questions. We are going to read all of them towards the end of the session. And also Anna is going to ask you during the session to use it a little bit. I just would like to remind you that you also have, you're going to have your attestati at the end of the session. You're going to find them on mondadorieducation.it, the website, /attestati in that particular section. I'm going to repeat this information at the end of the session, so I don't want to waste too much time now. So Anna, the stage is yours. Thank you, everyone. I'll be here.
Oh, thank you, Romina, for your lovely introduction. And thank you, Macmillan, for inviting me, and Montadori for having me again. And particularly thank you to all of you, all teachers out there. I see lots of interesting place names in the chat box. Florence, Ravenna, some places I visited many, many years ago. So thank you so much for being here, because I fully understand that still the beginning of the school year, there's a lot going on and we're all quite busy. So good. So let me start sharing my slides with you, and then we can get started. So you have the comment box, so that is lovely, because I will ask you questions to participate and make it as interactive as I can today. So first things first, I've got 3 animals. I just came back from holiday, as I just said to Romina, so it's a little bit African themed tonight. I've got 3 different animals on these images. Any ideas of the names of these creatures, feel free to share with me. I saw a lot of number 2. Number 3 wasn't really a lot there in Africa. So if you know any of these creatures, Sylvia, yes, it must be my favorite creature, a sloth. Lovely, that is indeed a sloth. And often when we talk about sloths, there's a certain adjective maybe that we link to sloths. We have got a meerkat, Simona. Indeed, they were amazing in the desert. They seem to be very, I don't know what sort of adjective you would link to the meerkats. And of course, our trusted 4-footer, the dog. Slow, yes, Savannah. Slow for the sloth, sleepy, slow, lovely. And the dog, what sort of adjective would you attach to that today when you see this picture? Daniela, indeed, it is a meerkat. And they're actually a bit like puppy dogs because they can sit on their butts as well. Very funny, but they like to sit like that. Watchful, Morena, I like that. Dynamic for the dog, great. Morena, I thought as well, very attentive when I saw all these little meerkats in the desert. So good. My first question for you is, how are you feeling today? And you can pick one of these creatures, or maybe you've got another adjective in mind. Which of these resonate with your feelings the most at the moment? Maybe excited for the dog, or dynamic, curious meerkat. I like that one. Or maybe a sleepy sloth, as I do feel a little bit because it was a very early arrival this morning back to Dubai. Feeling lazy, absolutely fine. Relax, Emanuela. Great. Curious. Yeah, so whatever creature you associate with the most at this moment is absolutely fine. We've got our little sloth days, we've got our meerkat moments, and we've even got our dog moments as well, right? That we're very excited, jumping up and down, and there is nothing wrong. It's just important, I think, with our students that we check in where they are when we start the lesson. I normally call it a quick, mindful check-in, so we know what they bring to the classroom, because we can't always have jumpy dogs energy. Yeah, sometimes we have this lazy Enrica, indeed, that sloth feeling that we bring, which is fine. And it helps me understand how my students feel and why they might behave in certain ways in the classroom. Now, of course, if they're sleepy sloths, maybe there is something I can do to help their mind get into a more resourceful state. So I'm going to do one quick activity with you to hopefully get you in a resourceful state for the webinar. Yeah? So the next activity is over to you. I'm going to ask you to use the comment box again and see if you can help me make as many words as you can from the letters in one word you're going to see. So you can combine the letters, but you cannot use any letters that you can't see. Yeah, so if there's two M's, you can use two M's. If there's only one, you can only use one and not make anything up. Yeah, so how many words can you make from this word? I'm going to give you 1 minute to see if I can get your dynamic energy going. Multiliteracy. Feel free to do it on paper, do it in your head. If you have ideas, you can keep typing in the comments and press some later. Oh my goodness. Utility, Anna. Wonderful. Litter. Military, Daniela. Oh my goodness. These were my long words I came up with on a 10-hour flight. Sylvia, thank you. Create. Mercy. Till. Marina, illiteracy. Yes. Multi, Elisabetta. Let me challenge you. 5 letters or more. 5 letters or more. I see loads. Simona, thank you. Adriana. Oh, friendly was probably the creature, right? I see. Rate. Multiple. Multiple doesn't work because there's no PL in this word, of course. Ultra, I think that works. That is lovely, Morena. Thank you. Good. I see lots of people being active in the chat. Thank you for that. Unity. There's no N. We cannot use that. Utility, Kamala. Yes, I think that worked. Yes, totally. Good. I'm going to show you some of the words that I came up with and entertained myself with on my long flight home. Maybe you can compare your thoughts as well. Here we go. Literacy, Mirella, obviously, yes, wonderful. Now, there's no wrong, there's no right, but a little activity like this, and as you noticed, I didn't say at the start, I need 5-letter words or more than 5 letters. It's really nice because all learners can work at their level and do something and make some words. And I think this is why it's quite a quick, differentiated activity that often gets the energy flowing again and gets them a little bit more dynamic and into that resourceful state for learning. Yeah, very brief. Of course, they do need vocabulary. I'm not expecting any words. And also notice, I didn't ask how many words have you got. I think we often are tempted to ask that. And as a teacher, I always have to stop myself from asking that because it's not about how many words or how quickly we finish. It's about the words that you find. Yeah, so what I might ask instead is what's the longest word you could make with these letters? And I think that's nice. We have maybe like we had a long word, literacy, illiteracy, military. But there is no wrong or right. There are no winners. But we're all working hard in our heads. We get ourselves focused. And then hopefully, I say to my students, we're now ready for learning. So I guess you can guess the topic of today's session. It was already, of course, in the title. It's all about multiliteracy. So what I like to do, a short overview here, quick overview or exploration of our audience, because everything we teach is very much dependent on the level or the age group or the developmental level of our students. And then we're going to look into literacy and particularly what multiliteracy actually is, find some definitions, and then we're going to look at the implications for learning and teaching before looking at various activities that you can use in your classroom with Gateway, but regardless, with any course book, they will work in your classroom. If you have any questions during the session, please use the comment box, and otherwise at the end, hopefully we have some time left for questions as well. So good. So let's get cracking. Who are our learners? I think that's always very interesting. I assume most of you, but correct me if I'm wrong, in the chat box teach teenagers. Can you tell me what level or what sort of students you teach? Young learners, adults, or is it teens? You can do a Y or a P for primary, an S or a T for teenagers, secondary. Or maybe you teach adults. You can give me an A in the comments. Teens, Anna. Lovely. Teens, Sylvia as well. Elisabetta, Maria. Loads of teens and adults, Erica. Nice. Yeah, so what we're looking at tonight is not only focused on teenagers. I think a lot of the activities are very well adaptable to adult learners or vocational students. To adapt them to younger learners, that might be a little bit more of a challenge because we expect they have a little bit less language and also less life experience. But I'm aiming this at teenagers. If you have any questions how to adapt when we do an activity, do let me know, please. Good. So when we talk about teenage learners, because I think most of you are teaching teenagers, what kind of adjectives do you associate with your teenage learners? Have you got any adjectives that pop to mind when I say teenage classroom? Tiziana, oh, loads. Evening school as well. Adults, teens. Thank you. So any adjectives that you can use or you would use to describe your teenage learners? Yes, sometimes I say for me sloths because they can be a bit like that, but they can also be like the dogs, very dynamic. They can be very chatty and cheerful, totally. Curious of the digital world, Maria saying. Lively, Marina. Rosella saying lazy. Yeah. Ambitious and chatty. Complaining. I actually think we've got a wide variety of adjectives there, right? Creative, worried, eager to learn, joyful, fast. Although sometimes I have to say not, but yes, curious as the meerkats, cheerful, shy. Great. It's nice to see that we get this variety of adjectives. Quite often when I ask this question, that's actually exactly what I get. We get a lot of these words. Anxious, yes, emotional, impulsive, sometimes maybe even indifferent. They don't really care what we do. And then Tiziana, indeed, we also get loads of those: motivated, excitable, enthusiastic, very observant, yet talkative, inquisitive, because they have lots of questions and they want to know why or what, or yeah. Tough at times, totally, Sonia. I very much agree. I think sometimes it depends on the mood they have when we come to school, if it's going to be a very cheerful class, and sometimes it's a little bit more hard work for us, right? So looking at the adjectives you have given me in the comments box, it's actually very similar to what I show you on the screen. We've got some black words, the darker words, which are maybe perceived as less positive. And then we've got lots of red words that are often perceived as positive. However, they can also be very enthusiastic and sometimes a little bit too enthusiastic. So it becomes disruptive as well. But Christina, you make a very valid point. They can be a little bit absent-minded as well, because everything we do nowadays, a mobile phone, and it's really, really changed our brain. So keeping students focused can be quite a challenge. They can become very easily absent-minded, easily distracted, even though they're enthusiastic. Yeah? Now, there is nothing wrong with saying they might be emotional, they might be absent-minded. As you know, I'm sure, there's a lot going on in our teenagers' brain. They're going through a lot of changes, not only physically, emotionally, but also mentally. There is a lot happening in the brain. And I'm sure you all know about this, but that prefrontal cortex in the brain, that is not fully developed till we mid-late 30s. So they often still think with the limbic system, that inside in the brain. And that's sometimes why they become very rowdy or noisy, because they flip their lids and they go, ooh, because they haven't got the control yet that we have developed over our brain. So I always say it's absolutely fine if they have these different behaviors, because their brain is still under construction. So unpredictable, that's a really nice way of saying it. Totally. We can be unpredictable as adults as well, but with teenagers, there's much more going on. And in that way, they're indeed a lot more fragile, because things are changing in their body, in their mind. And one thing that is really, I think, important to be aware of, there is a process going on in the brain, which we call pruning. You know, when you have trees, sometimes you have to cut off the last bit that has grown to make sure that the tree doesn't die at the end of summer, just to make sure that it can rejuvenate again. That pruning also means that a lot of our students start to become a little bit more like disinterested in certain topics that they feel are not relevant to them. Because when we are small, when we are younger, primary school, we are sort of expanding our view of the world and learning about everything, because we don't know that much yet. And when they're teens, they're sort of closing down again, saying, I'm not interested in football, I'm not interested in fashion, I'm more interested in that. So that pruning process means that it can be a challenge to actually tap into what engages them in the classroom. So it's really important that what we do, we make clear to our students how it can be useful for them in the classroom. So we really need to zoom in on what matters to them. So what sort of activities, or I'm not going to ask about a particular activity name, but what sort of things do you think, actions or activities or tasks in the classroom, would matter to them because they can see how useful this is in real life. Anything that you've noticed in your classroom. I saw already somebody writing in the chat box, digital tools, because they're really interested in technology, right? What sort of other things can we consider using in the classroom that really we think matters to them? Competitions, debate. Yes, they like talking. A lot of you are being chatty, right? So if we see that as negative, we can actually here see how we can build on this and use it as a positive, because they like talking, they like debating. Activities for life, lovely. Yeah, role play, Susanna, things that they actually can use that are authentic. Games, acting, live games. Alice, when you say live games, do you mean face-to-face or more online, or pair work and group work, Tiziana? Very much so. They really want to find out where they belong and be part of that tribe, right? So that collaborative work is for them really, really important. They love challenges indeed. They are much more willing to take risks than we are as adults, because that other part of the brain is like, yeah, feels good, I'll do it. Real life tasks, authenticity, Sylvia, lovely. Great. So looking at research, I've collected some different ideas. And I think a lot of this you've just also put in the chat box. Yeah, Maria, for some students as well, good grades really, really matter, right? Just being able to do well in life, being successful. And I think that goes back to challenge. They like challenge as long as of a level that they can still succeed. If it's too challenging, and you might have noticed that in your own classes, I'm not even going to try because I can't do it. Because why would you be motivated if we get a task to do that you know you can't do yet? Work on Canva very much. So there's a beautiful technology tool, Simona, which we're going to talk about today as well. They take indeed those calculated risks. They like challenge with the knowledge of knowing I can sort of succeed. Yeah, that competency level is there because they don't want to lose face in front of their buddies. Yeah. Tea or coffee? I'm all in, Adriana, for that as well. Yeah, tea. Rooibos from South Africa. Good. So what matters for them? And I think for this, there's a lot that we can take into the classroom. First thing, of course, as you all said, it needs to be meaningful. It needs to be something that they can use in real life, like debates, role plays, and meaningful topics. I think there's one thing for us to be aware of, is that sometimes what we think is meaningful is not always meaningful for our students. Yeah, so I tend to be, particularly the beginning of the year, trying to figure out what they feel is important, what they feel is interesting and relevant. What do they want to do in the classroom? And I can just sort of adapt and tweak what I do so they can actually relate to it. It's not always the same what interests me. And I think that's where we need to be aware of. Sometimes pushing our ideas through might not always be the most effective. Then also, as you already said, lots of role plays, talking, collaborative work, presenting, communication. It's not only important for teenagers, because it's important for all of us, because we're very social beings as human beings. We like to listen to others, to share with others, because that is the base of building relationships, that connectedness to other people. And that is what we need as humans to stay safe, right? We need to be part of that community. And my travel in Africa was very interesting to see how elephants also actually just communicate and always stay together, because our security and safety in life is by having that community around you, in the classroom, your family, your friends. So these things, I thought that was really inspiring to think about. What can we do in the classroom to focus on communication? Talking about communication, of course, there is something that we need if we want our students to communicate. They want to communicate. They want to do debates, presentations, role plays. But for that, we really need to think about what particular skills do they need to succeed in learning, work, and life beyond the classroom in our modern social age. So that's something for us to think about. And of course, teaching English, it's all about literacy skills. Now I'm going to ask you to have a look at this question, have a think, but I'm going to ask you to use a different tool, a digital tool, because as some of you already said in the chat box, our students really like digital tools. So I'm just going to stop sharing this slide. And I'm going to ask you to scan the QR codes of the next page I'm going to show you. I don't know if you're familiar with this tool. You should be able to see my WooClap now. Can you see my slides? So all you need to, if you can, is go and take a screenshot, take a picture, and then it should come up. Click on the link. Otherwise, you can just go to wooclap.com and put in the code that you can read there. And then it might tell you that it's not ready yet, because that means I need to do something. And this is the nice thing from WooClap. It's very similar to Mentimeter, but you have a little bit more control as a tutor or teacher because you set off the activity. And so here we can actually see, you should be able to participate. If you're typing things in. Good. Oh, lovely. From inside to outside, I can see some things happening. What comes to mind? If you're joining me on WooClap, we should be able to see, there we go, writing. Beautiful. Passion, creativity, literacy. Yeah, so what comes to mind when you hear the word literacy skills, being able to decipher? I think that is often the base of anything. Communication, writing, comparing, lovely. Understanding, communicating. Oh my goodness, and look at the colors. So you can choose how you want it. Colorful in the word clouds. Maybe a little bit more boring. Or you can do a little grit. But I'm all for colors. And particularly today when we talk about multiliteracy, you can also see here that some words are bigger than others. And I think you can guess why. That most likely means that many of you have typed in the word communication, language, different, communicating. So the bigger the word, the more it has been shared. Great. So literacy skills, indeed. The old definition of literacy indeed relates to being able to read and write. Now let me stop sharing this with you. I don't know if any of you have used WooClap before. It's for free. It's a really nice tool. Go back to my Google presentation. And it's anonymous, which is very nice as well. So our students can actually share their words, share their writing with you, practice the spelling, or just share ideas, whatever they want to share. And you get a good idea. You could do this to find out what their interests are. You could do this just to brainstorm some words on the topic of education, or as we just did, on the topic of literacy. So good. I'm going to move you on. I can see some people are still going. I'm going to move you on to the next slide. So traditionally, literacy, indeed, as you have written in the WooClap as well, is all about the ability to read and write so you could communicate, which meant you can actually understand what people say and also, of course, create. And the definition was updated in 2002 by UNESCO to talk about create, communicate, and compute because that became more important, right? And Daniela, you don't have to register. Oh, you register as a teacher. Yes, I just registered my name, and I've got about 30 or 40 WOOC labs. And the beautiful thing is, in the WOOC lab, you have one code, but I could have 6 different questions linked to that code. So you just did now question 1. Later on, we might click and go to question 2 with the same code. So there's a lot less hassle. It's just one file that you give a name, maybe Monday, the 7th of October. Yeah, so definitely check it out. Lots of different options as well. Ranking, gap fill, multiple choice. I really like it a lot more than Mentimeter, and it's all for free. A limited amount. You can't have 200 people on there, I think, but good. So traditional literacy, reading, writing, counting was also part of them. But of course, life has very much changed, and UNESCO added computing, printed material, and written materials. But now we're in 2024, and of course, things have changed again. So I think when we look at what we do, the traditional understanding as teachers we know is not only writing and reading, it's also the oracy skills. You need to be able to listen, you need to be able to speak and share your ideas. But a lot has changed. I don't know, when you were at school, it was probably all about, like me, listening, reading, speaking, writing. But nowadays, it's going way beyond simply reading and writing, the alphabetic function of language. So nowadays, I'm going to click through that because I'm going to look at this. In our social age, there are different things that our students need to read. And Maria has just written in our comments box, media. So what sort of things in our social age do our students read or write, if you want to call it that way? Visual, Sylvia, totally. There's a lot more of that going on. So what you can see in visuals could be an image. Now, I don't know if you're all watching via StreamYard. Maybe you are watching me on YouTube, and that is also a visual. It's not a still image, but they call it a moving image. Elizabeth, beautiful. Thank you. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook for the old-fashioned people like me, Snapchat for my students. Right? So indeed, it's that combination of having, visual combined with text. Yeah, so film subs as well, totally. I don't know if you recognize the thing on the left where you have sort of information in visual form combined with images, infographics or info charts or picto charts, as people call them. Then there's a lot more graphics around as well. You read something in the paper, it often contains an image. Yeah, there's also, we use slides. Our slides have pictures, plus they have text. So indeed, the modern form of literacy is much more, it's primarily based on images with some text. Now, I'm not saying that students don't need to learn to read and write essays or paragraphs anymore, but it's very much about images, moving or still images that have a huge impact indeed, combined with text. And Morena, you're just looking at the meme, the one with the cat, right? So we have a little bit of text, and then we have this image of that cat. I think looking at that cat, that gives us actually quite a lot of information. So that sort of information is everywhere around us, advertisements, even on websites that we open, we can find all this kind of information. So it's increasingly becoming more digitalized, and therefore it's possible to make our communication much more multimedia. So it was the ability to read and write, but now it has sort of changed to identify, understand, interpret, create, and communicate in a digital text-mediated, information-rich and fast-changing world. Podcasts, yes. Vlogs, so you have the blog, but then somebody is talking about their blog and there might be some words popping up as well. I even read about Slogs the other day, which is just a soundtrack blog, a read out blog that has been recorded, all these new words. So communication is increasingly more digital and multimodal. So I love this one. I found that as well on the plane, an advertisement I hadn't seen before. I think you can probably guess which company it's from. Can you see the link with happy? And I thought it's really nice. We actually don't even need that text. We can just show our students this image and say, what do you think a good slogan or heading might be? Yeah, because I think looking at the right Ken, you can probably recognize in that gap, that smile, right? So this is reading an image. So we're looking at viewing. There is a smile indeed, and it doesn't say smile, but we can just see it. So images carry a lot more weight, and it's simply just a sign of our changing communication environment. But that means for us teachers as well that we really need to be aware of what our students need to be able to read. Emojis, Adriano, indeed. So multimodal literacy gives us a lot of extra things that we can focus on in the classroom. But it's actually so important to integrate because it's everywhere. It's authentic. It's meaningful to our students because this is probably what they see. They might not open, I don't know, a book to read about emotional intelligence or whatever. They might just go on YouTube and watch a short Vimeo or a clip and get the information they need, listening, seeing, and with text popping up. So when we look at multiliteracy, it focuses on 5 different modes. Mode meaning a way of communicating. Yeah? You can see them here in that image. Visual mode, the oral mode, gestural mode, spatial mode, and the linguistic mode. Now, the linguistic mode, of course, reading and writing text. Yeah? Can you help me match these letters with the modes? So the meaning of what can be seen, what kind of mode would that be for A? I'm going to give you a minute to have a read and have a think. Wow, lovely to see all your activity there. Means I'm not alone, which is always good to know. And you're not alone too, which is nice. We're part of our community. Great. Oh, sorry, on the phone is maybe a little bit small, right? I'm going to give you the answers in a minute, and then you can maybe take a screenshot and enlarge that for yourself. Good. I see lots of beautiful answers here. So indeed, when you look at all this, let me show you, and I think we're all going in the right direction. What you can see very simply when we looked at those 2 Kens, yeah, the smiling Ken, the Ken that makes you smile, was very much the visual mode where we could see the happiness and the smiling from. So one very simple activity when you want students to maybe look at that visual, what can you see? 6-word stories. I love using it with my students. I just take a picture of my phone, or I find something, a friend of mine has a nice image. I said, can I please use it with my students? Can you write a 6-word story? And there's often a heading or a caption, but they can only use 6 words. And it's quite challenging, but it's a very creative thing. But looking at what you actually see, there's nothing there. You make up your own story. Spatial, we're really looking at That's the physical layout. So, for example, certain words might be bold, might be larger, they might be a certain position. And as you can see on the slides as well, what I've been trying to do, there might be a picture on the right that supports the meaning, and then the text on the left. There's a reason that I don't put the text on the image. Sometimes the text is maybe red or blue. That could be seen as visual, but you could also maybe make it larger or have more white space around us. So how are we actually placing things? And those two cans that you saw, that spatial mode, it's really interesting because they were exactly the same, little bit of distance between them. And then, of course, there was a massive gap. Oral mode, we've got linguistic mode, we do a lot of already in the classroom. And the gestural mode, the meaning of communication through movement, through facial expressions, through body language, playing movies, a lot short video clip, recording something, and getting students to just listen or watch it without the sound. So I call it listen to the silence. There is so much that we can see if people are happy or sad or upset just by looking at their body language. Now, I know this is nothing new because we're already experiencing it when we relate to other people, when we get on the bus and we see what's happening in front of us or next to us. But all these different modes, Adriano, indeed, they all have their own message. And sometimes the gestural mode might not be the same as the oral mode. You can see somebody saying, yeah, I'm really happy. So the linguistic mode, here is happiness. The oral mode, happiness, good. You see the body language, you see the distance between people, not so positive. So it all conveys a message, and that's not always the same. So, in other words, multiliteracy is actually just combining all these different ways of communicating, and it contributes to meaning making. Or in other words, it really broadens that definition of literacy that we were talking about before. Now, you might wonder as a teacher, why should I care about multimodal literacy? I don't know if you have any ideas why it is important for us as teachers, because I think it is, but I might be biased because I am very interested in this topic. Think back to your learners. Why would it be important for us to actually focus on this in our English language lessons? Any ideas? And maybe you say it's not important. Let me know why you think it's not important before I'm trying to convince you that I think it is important. Feel free to, Daniela, a lot of this, particularly when we look at the gestural and spatial as well, how items or people are placed, the distance, the location, the emotions have a message as well. Accuracy, higher motivation. Students might be motivated when we talk about this or when we focus on this because it's everywhere around them. They pick up this and there's always visual literacy with gestures, with words, with sounds. Yes, they need to develop all these skills indeed. And also, Francesca, very nice point. It also takes into consideration the different learning preferences. Totally. It also makes learning more accessible. We use videos with subtitles, right? So they can see and listen. So more students can actually succeed. It engages them. Totally. It has become, well, and I think, Daniel, that's really nice. It has become their language. So in other words, multiliteracy is literacy, and English language teaching is literacy teaching. But of course, it has become their world. So it really reflects what our students, not only teenagers, but particularly teens, what they meet in their real life outside the classroom. It might not be in English, but it is a very useful skill. So it fits in nicely in the English classroom. Then as well, I'm just trying to get the next point up. There we go. It engages those different learning preferences, so different things that attract them come into the lesson, which might get them more motivated. My computer says no. And also, I think what we just did at a very low level, light level, it gets students to think more critically and analyze, what do you think the message is? What are people trying to say? How has that been represented? Does it actually match? So you can include some more critical pedagogy into your teaching, which is a very important thing, I think, for our world where there's so much out there, but it's not always what it looks like. So engaging them with those materials to think about that critically and evaluate what's going on. It's the context. We always talk about language need to be contextualized. This is their language. This is their context. This is how they will use it and see it most likely. And then, of course, we spoke about that. It makes it more inclusive. Students who are maybe not so strong in reading and writing can also succeed. And then it enables them to express their ideas. If they're going to make this using technology, they can become creative. They can express their thoughts, their ideas on a topic. And then the last one is very much about including digital literacy. So it actually has a very meaningful use of those digital tools. So killing two birds with one stone. They can use digital tools to actually show their own learning, present their ideas in a multi-literacy way. Yeah. Yes, it stimulates immediate responses as well. So there's a lot going for it, I think, in our classroom. Now, what does that mean for us? For some reason, my computer was stuck, but I think it's back now. More and more, the communication we have nowadays, and particularly our teenagers, is multimodal. And we need to make sure that we strengthen their multimodal communicative competences. So they're able to deal with that in real life. They're able to read it if that's the word you want to use. Now, when we look at Gateway, there's a lot in Gateway already that is actually trying to strengthen students' multimodal literacy. I don't know if there's any of these that you think, oh, this is what I use already out of these multimodal literacies that Gateway helps strengthen. There's one favorite of mine that I use a lot in Gateway, but we couldn't use today on the platform, unfortunately. If you're using Gateway, you must like the videos. So there's a lot of multimodal literacy already in those videos. Yeah. But also, if you look at the course book, this is just a page, I think it's from the A2 book, I've taken it. You see images, faces, they're smiling at you, get you maybe in the mode for learning, but also, of course, you see this very clearly. Visuals, icons, like emojis that we actually sort of need to be able to read nowadays. The timetable, or this is particularly the class schedule. And looking at the bit of reading here, you can see education is in bright yellow letters. The visual literacy, this is already addressing. Then also, of course, that linguistic literacy. And then, of course, the last one here is that spatial, because education is bigger, it's highlighted. There's a lot of white space around the classroom schedule. Yeah? There's also a lot of spatial because there's just a time and a number. So the way it's set up and lay out is very much trying to develop that. Similar, visual. Anything else here besides visual? Yeah, the videos with interesting topics, very much. Again, of course, we're doing vocabulary in Gateway. Then we have that spatial as well, because if you can see how it's built up, it's shown in a phone, which can be seen as visual, but the space between the numbers, the weather, the colors. And then here again, you can see in the reading what they have done with benefits. large, attracts attention, right? And then you see lots of pictures being used as well, often of people, because facial expressions, of course, adds to all this. So you get that gestural literacy as well. Are they happy? Why is Bill Gates actually represented like this? Why is Venus like that? Why is Greta looking quite serious? So you can also look at that. And the listening, of course, the videos, oral literacy, and you can actually add all these to it. So Gateway already has a lot going on. There's a lot in the book already that we do, that our students get the opportunity to be exposed to. Sometimes all we need to say with the pictures on the left, describe a photo, get students to think about, why would these people stand so closely together? Why do you think the photographer has chosen on the page on the right to have a person standing on a rock like this? What is that expressing? What do you think the message is of the emptiness around this person? I stood like this on Table Mountain the other day, and for me it was freedom. But they might see it differently. So they might think about loneliness. They might think about victory. Yeah, there are no wrong or rights quite often, but it's interesting to analyze and think about this with our students. So when we look at teaching and learning, I think the first thing we need to figure out for our students is, what do you think our students could strengthen further? Which of these do we maybe they bring to the classroom, but they could probably develop a little bit further? Any feelings about this in your context? Because you know your students a lot better than I know them. Because linguistics, of course, we already do as teachers. We look at the words, sentence structure, how we link things, the meaning of that. Anything of this that you think, yeah, linguistic, always, of course, that is our job as English language teachers. Gestural, Elisabetta, I think, looking at my students, I very much would say that too. They're not always aware of body language, different cultures. We have students from 8 different cultures in the classroom, yeah? But also the space, why are people standing so closely together? That oral, that active listening, Sylvia, and active listening is not easy, right? Listening between the lines, as we might call it. Why is there silence? It's oral, very interesting. Yeah. And spatial, I think, is really creative if we start to look at that. Maybe a little bit less of a need, but still an area we can think of just asking a few questions about and raising that awareness with our students. Now, the quote here shows you actually what we spoke about already, but Gavin makes a really interesting point that it is not only about students understanding that oral, gestural, linguistic literacy, it is also about them creating it. So we're talking about 2 different things when we talk about multiliteracy. Viewing, receiving, reading. So they look at a video, they look at a piece of text, they look at a photo, at an advertisement, but then we also look at presenting, representing, which is the making of that themselves. Yeah, and I'm just going to go click through these because I don't sometimes think we give enough to the making to our students. We give a lot to the viewing, understanding what we see, but not creating. So indeed, deciphering and producing. So things for us to remember as teachers, we need to maybe strengthen our own understanding, which is absolutely fine. It's a new era. We might not have done this at school ourselves. Then we need to see what strengths our learners already have and what the areas are where we feel we can put a bit more emphasis on in the classroom so they develop and strengthen that particular mode of communication. And the last bit, somebody already mentioned in the chat box, there's lots of different modes other than print. Canva is a fabulous website. Genially is a great website. Camtasia, if you want to make videos. Well, Google Slides and Google Sites, of course. And PictoChart is one where you can make infograms, but to be honest, I think Canva does all of this. So we can have a look and explore things that we can use and then use with our students. So that would be the implication for learning and teaching. Viewing, well, we already watch videos with our students, right? So we often have the normal pre-viewing, during viewing, and after viewing. But one activity I really like to do with my students is that silent viewing. You can take something from YouTube, you can take something from your course book, just ask them some very simple questions, watch it without sound. What are your feelings and thoughts? What sort of cultural aspects or differences do you see? What sort of emotions, that emotional literacy? Yeah? And what sort of genre? Why do you think this text was produced? Silent viewing, very powerful, and you choose what you want to focus on. You can talk about why do you think these people are standing so far away from each other? That's spatial, if you feel that's what you need. We're not going to watch it. But again, you can use something like exploring the evaluative dimension. But I often focus on the emotional dimension as well. What emotions are presented? Look at those faces very carefully. What was your reaction watching this? Does it link or bring back any memories for you? And that brings that relatedness back into the classroom again as well. I'm going to go through this a little bit quickly. When you watch a video or a vlog, 3 S's. And you don't need all the questions. You can pick which ones you like and are appropriate to what you're watching. How do we know where the story takes place? When and how do they change the setting or the filming? Are there any moments of silence? And why? What do you think was the aim of that? So very simple questions to strengthen those multiliteracies. When we use images, I often look at colors. In Gateway, there's quite a bit of variety in colors. You know, what do you think the message is? Why have they chosen to do these colors? How do these colors make you feel? What moods do you think they aim to create? So all these simple things is raising awareness. When students are going to represent or produce it, we first need to make them aware. And that's what we do through that viewing or through that listening and reading and asking questions about all these things. Good. Here again, emotions. They can describe very basic what they see. Then they can actually explain, why do you think these people are presented like this? Why are they smiling? Why are they holding hands like this? And maybe, what do you think the meaning was or the message is from the photographer or from the publisher? Why have they chosen these particular pictures? So describe, explain, infer. Oh, it goes backwards now. I don't know what happened with the Google Slides animation. Yeah, so very simple activity you can do with anything in a video or a still image. So, these questions are really good as well. There are 5 key questions. If there's one thing you take a picture of, I would say this. This is really to get them to think critically about messages. Who created it? What techniques did they use? What's the message for you? Is it the same for others? Why have they left certain things out maybe? And why is this message being conveyed? Now, again, yesterday when I was driving to the airport in Cape Town, I saw these amazing images. Look at that. I had to read it twice. I was stuck in traffic thinking, what does it mean? Get naked on your mountain bike. The new way to cover your stuff. The closer I got, the more I realized cover. Aha, this is an insurance company. Yeah, so that's the name of the insurance company, Get Naked. Capital letters, it's a name, I should have been aware of that. But what does it do? It makes you think. It gets you to look again. Yeah. Could other people interpret it in a different way? Yes, they probably can. So simple picture that you take on your way to school, you can ask these 5 questions about, and then really start to develop those literacies. Spacing is here, visual is here, linguistic is here, gestural not, but some of them have pictures and then it works with the images. Good. So then, of course, we have a lot of this viewing, but the representing, I think, is also important. And I'm not going to ask you to answer this question for me or to put it in the chat box, your answer. This is something for you to think of for yourself. How often do I get my learners actually to represent, to create multiliteracy things? Yeah, do we do that a lot, or is that something that I could maybe do a little bit more with my students? I have to be honest with myself. I think I can give more time to that, but often it doesn't happen for various reasons. But in Gateway, there are simple tweaks that we can use to work on getting them to actually produce multiliteracy outcomes or products. When you look at this, again, the great learners, the great thinkers, the video, look at this. They watch the video, visual literacy, the viewing, and then we can start to have all these numbers. Why not get them to think and get all that information on paper and then say, you know what, we're going to create an infographic. Canva has lots of free templates. If you're not on Canva yet, I highly recommend it. And they could create something like this with numbers, flowcharts, whatever. If they don't want to use it online, they can make a poster. Yeah, where you have an image and you have some text with all these numbers. So it's a summary of what they've seen. Here are some websites that you could use if you're interested. Geniali is also fabulous to check out and for free. PictoChart is for free for up to 50 infograms. And of course, memes, as we talked about. Create memes, very simple, very powerful, or create 6-word stories. Again, on the topic of education, maybe create a meme. Maybe a topic of the whole unit at the end as a wrap-up. We talked about active living, find an image and write a short text on it. A meme has no limit. Sorry, that's my cat. That's not him. A meme has no limit. My 6-word stories, they do have a limit. Again, PowerPoint is great. Meme generator for free. Capwing is a really nice tool for free. But Canva does the trick as well. If you say, I have no ideas, very simple. I've just gone to my phone earlier this morning, pick some pictures, and these are from my phone. Yeah, but you could also say, okay, students, your homework is find a picture, bring it in next week, put it on Padlet, upload it there, and then we can work with it and create a meme. Yeah, so the students could grab something for their own phone if you are allowed to use that. Otherwise, they can bring it in and email it to you. And then the next stage, show it to your partner. And then they can ask questions. Why have you chosen this picture? Why have you chosen that color? Why have you chosen that letter size? And then they swap roles. Very visual, easy activity, a nice summary of your unit. Creating thoughts or speech bubbles. We've got these beautiful pictures. Predict what you think these people are thinking or going to say. Or at the end, maybe summarize the core message. Maybe look at the relationship. What do you think she's thinking about this other person they've just been speaking to? Yeah, you can even use it for these still images that have no audio. Be creative. A website I like to use is phraseit.net. As you can see, I just put up a photo, upload it for free, and you just make a little speech bubble. If you want the fancy ones, you pay, but otherwise this is for free. Great, students can make it at home, make screenshots, send it to you, and you could use it in class on Padlet or whatever tool students use to share and comment on each other's work. Create bubbles. I often do it with my students. Get an image from your phone, your father, I don't know, somewhere, or from the course book, or take a screenshot from a YouTube that you liked. Yeah? Or after a listening task, they can do that to respond, or they can just do it related to the topic. And again, that last stage, really integrate language learning, look at your buddy's image, talk about it, ask questions and comment. Even if you want, give some feedback. The video, They can create a visual presentation of what they have seen. Yeah, there's always those questions there on social emotional learning. Why not record themselves with their phone, make a little reel? They can probably use Camtasia or on Canva, because in Canva you can record or upload what you have recorded on your phone. Prezi is another way if you don't want to work with video. But there's lots of different ways, and particularly the collaborative project. I love that bit where they have the project task. I mean, they can make posters, but they can make that on Canva. They can do a presentation, like a video, put subtitles underneath. Or they can make an information leaflet, again, on PowerPoint or on Google Sites, a beautiful website tool that's actually very easy to use. So I think there's lots of ways for us teachers to integrate this into our teaching without really reinventing the wheel and adding more to our loads. But we need to become familiar with the different tools and the ways of integrating that. Now, I think you can guess what my last slide is titled as in a bit of visual literacy in a nutshell, right? It's not enough to just look at reading, speaking, listening, and writing. And using videos and pictures, as you already know, is not optional. Our students need it. But our role is really to give those opportunities to them to read it, to analyze, evaluate, but also to create it. And I think it's a beautiful opportunity to also start focusing on digital tools. And as always, to allow them to do that in a project form or in group or pair work, because that's really where the language interaction takes place together as well. Right. Your takeaways from today. I really hope there's one or two things that you feel you can take away from this session, that there's something useful in there for you. If you want to share that, feel free in the chat box. If not, maybe have a look at the recording and see if there's one or two things that you think, oh, I'm going to check that out for myself because that looked quite interesting. Other than that, I'm going to any questions or comments. And you will receive the recording, Sabrina, for sure, to go through it a little bit slower and look at all the links, right? Because there's quite a bit in there. So any questions, any comments, let me know if there's anything else. And thank you. I hope it was useful because I know you already are all experienced teachers, but I hope I've been able to add a little bit to your multiliteracy repertoire tonight.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anna, for this session. I was reading all the comments and everyone is asking about the PowerPoint. So the slides actually. So I'm really happy. That means that everyone is actually taking lots of your ideas. So I'm really, really happy. So everybody, just to give you a final recap, you're going to find both the slides and your attestati, so the certificates, in the sections on mondadorieducation.it/attestati. And the recording is going to be available on YouTube as well in the Mondadori channel, Mondadori Education channel, sorry. So if you would like to be updated on the next webinars as well, if you click on iscriviti inside the channel, then you'll be able to see all the news. The next session will be on the 28th of October. It's not going to be with Anna, unfortunately, but Anna will come back. So thank you again, Anna, for this. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. And the next section, again, is going to be on the 28th of October, and it's going to be about AI and certifications. Same time. So 6 p.m. Italy time. So thank you very much, everyone. And thank you again, Anna. It was really, really inspiring and very, very practical.
It was my pleasure. And thank you to all the teachers for being so active in the chat box. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And yeah, feel free to connect. If you have any questions, feel free as well to find me on LinkedIn and get in touch. And thank you so much for organizing this. Lovely.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a nice evening. Bye bye. Thank you.
See you.